Hello and welcome back to my channel. A couple of weeks ago now I decided to make a punt on buying this camera. It's an Olympus AF-1 Mini, also known as the Olympus Infinity camera, I believe in the US. And I think really the person I bought this from off Facebook Marketplace was unsure or didn't know its potential true value, especially because the lens is thought to be the same from the Olympus Mju range of cameras. But he did sell it as untested, and there's a slight issue with the battery door in that it needs a piece of sellotape to stay closed. But when I was looking around on eBay, this seems to be a common issue with this camera. Anyway, when I was looking at this, I read an interesting review actually of this camera on a site called 35mm. I'll put a link in the description, and that kind of led me to think it was well worth a go, especially because it only cost me £25. So when I received it, it was quite grimy, so I gave it a really good clean, put a new piece of sellotape on the back of the door and gave it a good look over. And considering its age, 26 years old, because it was released in 1995, is in very good condition, with just the odd sign of wear and tear, which is kind of expected for something of this age. You open the door at the front, and that in effect turns the camera on. It's a very simple operation, and you should be able to see the reading on the top to indicate that I have in fact put a roll of film, Ilford's HP5 into the camera, and I've in effect exposed all of the film available to me. So why did I choose to buy this camera? Well, what I seem to be missing in my growing camera collection was a film camera which was light and compact enough that can just fit into a pocket, and I could take out on, like for instance, our daily exercise walks since we went into another lockdown. And also, more importantly, I was looking for something that I could potentially take with me on my daily runs. So I'm hoping that this is great just for those kind of snaps when I'm out and about and I don't want to take my heavy film cameras with me. The other advantage of this camera as well is it's waterproof or water splash proof. So if I did take it out running with me and it got a little bit wet, it wouldn't cause any major issues. Yeah, so I have run with this now for 3 or 4 times, and it's a little bit too heavy. With batteries, with 2 AA batteries, it weighs 313 grams. Yes, I could say 13 grams if I went for the smaller CR123A battery that it also takes, but I haven't got any of those spare at the moment, so AA will have to do. And like I said, 13 grams is neither here nor there really. Even though the size is great and it's great to operate one-handed when I see something that I want to capture, it is a little bit on the heavy side. So this is probably why the Olympus Mju cameras have got such a cult following, because whereas this one's 313 grams, the Mju camera seems to be about 171 grams and smaller still than this camera. So that's a pretty sizable difference in weight and size, and probably would be a really good companion for running and for those kind of quick snaps where you don't want to take a larger cumbersome film SLR camera. So like I said before, it's very easy to use. You just open the door one-handed. It's possible one-handed when you're out. The one thing you've got to remember is every time you close the door, it resets the status of the flash. So if you don't want flash in your shot, which I invariably don't want, you just have to double tap the flash button on the top, like so. Like I said before, I'm up to about 37 exposures. So from a roll of 36, I know that last one probably won't come out. So I probably just need to take a few more exposures, and then the camera should then start to rewind back into the film cartridge automatically. So let's just fire them off now, and you can see, and I'll take the film out, and then I can tell you about the other issue with this kind of camera. There you go, you should be able to now hear that this camera is winding back into the cartridge. And you can see actually that the counter on the camera is ticking back down. So that's now back into the camera. So I should be able to open the back of the camera and the film should all be wound back. Let's have a look. Yep, so there's a little switch on the back of the camera. Flip it up, and then the lid opens up, and there we have the completed cartridge, which just pops out like that. Since I started developing my film at home, I've always tried to leave a little bit of the leader coming out of the cartridge, because that makes it easier to clip into you need it sticking out, so you can clip it into the lab box in order to develop it. So what it has enabled me to do is actually use the leader retrieval tool that I picked up a while ago now, but have always been too careful when winding the film back into the cartridge that I haven't had to use it. So this is pretty much what the leader film retrieval tool looks like. So let's give it a bit of a go. Success. So there we go, success. I've now got the leader of the film out. I can now cut this off to make it square, and then I can then clip on this and then wind it all onto the lab box and then get it developed. So that's great. So I've been pretty lucky with this tool. Takes a little bit of practice, but the instructions are really clear, and yeah, it works great. Another reason why I was looking at a camera like this as well is because after my previous video where I wanted to use some expired Ilford Delta 3200 film and its native speed, I found that I couldn't, because my current film cameras only went up to a maximum of ISO 1600. So when I was looking for a small compact film camera, I made sure that I picked one which went up to ISO 3200, and this one does, like the Olympus range of MJU cameras as well. And if I'm perfectly honest, I really wanted one of those cameras, but their cult status that they seem to now kind of command means that their prices are often over £100. Saying that though, if the pictures that I've taken come out okay with this camera, I'll definitely consider keeping it, but ultimately I think I do want to try and get one of those Olympus MJU range cameras, just purely because if it can do what this one can, but in a smaller, lighter package, then that's something I would be definitely interested in. So that's enough talking. I'll get on and I'll develop that roll of film in the lab box with Kodak's HC110 developer, which I've been very pleased with, and I'll put the images up now and see what you think, and then I'll catch up with you again afterwards and have a quick discussion on whether I'm happy with the results or not. Right, so I've waffled on enough. I'm just going to have a quick sum up now on my thoughts on this camera. As you can hopefully see from the images you've just seen, the results are actually surprisingly really good. And especially because they're just snaps, I reckon they're even better than some of my shots I've taken with my SLR cameras. So yeah, I'm really pleased with how the results have turned out. One thing I did notice though is that it did have a tendency to overexpose my images, so obviously I had to darken them down quite a bit in post, but I think if I was to put another roll of film in, I think I just need to remember that I need to correctly expose for those highlights. I need to move the metering point over a lighter area, depress the shutter down by half, and then almost recompose the scene so that it meters from the lighter parts, but then I can obviously compose the original scene that I wanted to capture. Another thing to be wary of when using this camera as well is a number of times I actually have my finger in the way of the lens. So in some of the images there was a finger encroaching into some of the scenes. Thankfully, when I realised this in the field, I just obviously moved my finger out of the way and recompose and take another shot. So but that's something to be mindful with this camera, because especially if you're going for a one-handed operation, it just seems to be comfortable to leave your fingers in place. And of course you don't see your fingers through the viewfinder. The viewfinder doesn't show you what necessarily you see through the lens. Yeah, so is this going to replace my main SLR cameras? No, it's not. What you miss with this camera is a bit more control over your creativity and your depth of field. In the bigger SLRs, which are normally aperture priority or shutter priority mode, you can select the necessary shutter or aperture speed to determine how much of the scene you want to be in focus, so you can be a lot more kind of creative with your shots. However, this will fill a hole in my current camera arsenal, where if I want something uncomplicated and something which doesn't take up a lot of room and doesn't weigh a lot, you can just throw it in your bag, throw it in a big pocket, and then you can use it when you see something you want to take a picture of relatively quickly. So it's a great quick snap auto camera when you don't want to lug around a heavy SLR camera, but you still want to shoot film, and and it's great for that purpose. So I did touch on earlier, I think this is slightly too heavy, this camera, and I think I'm always going to be on the lookout for another kind of compact camera like the Olympus Mju range of cameras. But until that time, this will definitely fill that need of a light, compact, auto film camera. So at the same time I bought this camera, which does ISO 3200, I also bought this camera here, which is a Kodak FS1, which also allows me to go up to a native film speed of 3200. But it's got quite a weight to it, and that's why I was looking at these kind of compact cameras, is they weigh a fraction and can still produce some really good results. So I'll definitely, after my test with this camera, be seeing whether I actually need something this big and chunky, or whether I can switch to something like this, or maybe another film compact camera with an aperture priority mode, just to give me that little bit of creative control in my film images. So thanks for watching. Bye for now.